The Cold War, a global standoff that never erupted into full-scale war but left the world forever changed. For nearly half a century, two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, waged a battle of ideology, technology, espionage, and influence. Today, we explore the Cold War's origins, turning points, hidden operations, and enduring legacy in a modern geopolitics, military policy, and international relations. After World War II, former allies became ideological adversaries. The US championed capitalist democracy, while the USSR pushed for Marxist-Leninist socialism. The divide became clear at the Yalta 1945 and Potsdam 1945 conferences, where post-war Europe was carved up, East versus West. Winston Churchill coined the term Iron Curtain to describe this division. The Cold War had begun, not with gunfire, but with political tension and mutual suspicion. The Marshall Plan and Truman Doctrine solidified US policy to contain communism, leading to global political polarization. The Cold War played out across the globe through proxy wars, brinkmanship, and political subversion. Major turning points included the Berlin Airlift, 1948–49, preventing Soviet control over West Berlin. The Korean War, 1950–53, demonstrating early Cold War military confrontation. The Suez Crisis, 1956, revealing superpower tensions even among Western allies. The Cuban Missile Crisis, 1962, a near-apocalyptic standoff over Soviet missiles in Cuba. The Vietnam War, 1955–75, a costly ideological war that reshaped American foreign policy. The Soviet-Afghan War, 1979–89, draining Soviet resources and morale. Each of these flashpoints pushed the world closer to nuclear confrontation while shaping international alliances and resistance movements. From 1953 to 1957, Cold War tensions relaxed somewhat, largely owing to the death of the longtime Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin in 1953. Nevertheless, the standoff remained. A unified military organization among the Soviet bloc countries, the Warsaw Pact, was formed in 1955, and West Germany was admitted into NATO that same year. Another intense stage of the Cold War was in 1958–62. The United States and the Soviet Union began developing intercontinental ballistic missiles, and in 1962, the Soviets began secretly installing missiles in Cuba that could be used to launch nuclear attacks on US cities. This sparked the Cuban Missile Crisis, 1962, a confrontation that brought the two superpowers to the brink of war before an agreement was reached to withdraw the missiles. Beyond battlefields, the Cold War was defined by a silent war of information. Intelligence agencies like the CIA and KGB orchestrated coups, trained rebels, and recruited defectors. Espionage scandals like the Cambridge Five in Britain, Aldrich Ames, and Robert Hanssen revealed the depth of infiltration and paranoia. In space, the launch of Sputnik, 1957, shocked the US, sparking massive investment in education, science, and the formation of NASA. This rivalry gave us the moon landing, satellite technology, GPS, and the arms control framework that still exists today. The Cuban Missile Crisis showed that neither the United States nor the Soviet Union were ready to use nuclear weapons for fear of the other's retaliation, and thus of mutual atomic annihilation. The two superpowers soon signed the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty of 1963, which banned above-ground nuclear weapons testing. But the crisis also hardened the Soviets' determination never again to be humiliated by their military inferiority, and they began a buildup of both conventional and strategic forces that the United States was forced to match for the next 25 years. Throughout the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union avoided direct military confrontation in Europe and engaged in actual combat operations only to keep allies from defecting to the other side or to overthrow them after they had done so. Thus, the Soviet Union sent troops to preserve communist rule in East Germany, 1953, Hungary, 1956, Czechoslovakia, 1968, and Afghanistan, 1979. For its part, the United States helped overthrow a left-wing government in Guatemala in 1954. supported an unsuccessful invasion of Cuba, 1961, invaded the Dominican Republic, 1965, and Grenada, 1983, and undertook a long 1954-75 and unsuccessful effort to prevent Communist North Vietnam from bringing South Vietnam under its rule. See Vietnam War. Propaganda was a weapon of influence. In the US, media portrayed communism as an existential threat, while Soviet broadcasts condemned Western imperialism. Cultural battles played out at the Olympics, in cinema, and even in art, with the CIA covertly funding abstract expressionism to show off American freedom. Meanwhile, children practiced duck and cover drills, and fear of nuclear war became embedded in everyday life. To informed students of the history of communism, the term propaganda has yet another connotation, associated with the term agitation. The two terms were first used by the Russian theorist of Marxism, Georgy Plekhanov, and later elaborated upon by Vladimir Ilyich Lenin in a pamphlet, What is to be Done, 1902, in which he defined propaganda as the reasoned use of historical and scientific arguments to indoctrinate the educated and enlightened, the attentive and informed publics, in the language of today's social sciences. He defined agitation as the use of slogans, parables, and half-truths to exploit the grievances of the uneducated and the unreasonable. Since he regarded both strategies as absolutely essential to political victory, he combined them in the term agitprop. Every unit of historical communist parties had an agitprop section, and to the communist, the use of propaganda in Lenin's sense was commendable and honest. Thus, a standard Soviet manual for teachers of social sciences was entitled Propagandistu Politekonomii, for the propagandist of political economy. And a pocket-sized booklet issued weekly to suggest timely slogans and brief arguments to be used in speeches and conversations among the masses was called Bloknot Agitatora. By the 1970s, the Cold War cooled through détente. Strategic treaties like SALT I, Helsinki Accords, and ABME agreements marked efforts to reduce arms and normalize relations. Yet mistrust remained, and the 1980s brought renewed tension. Reagan's Star Wars defense plan and Soviet fears of a first strike increased pressure. Gorbachev's reforms, glasnost, and perestroika sparked democratic uprisings in Eastern Europe. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell, and in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed, ending the Cold War era. The Cold War shaped the 20th century, and its aftershocks still influence the 21st. From mistrust in global politics to the arms races of today, its legacy is a powerful reminder of both human ingenuity and human fear. What Cold War story do you think deserves a deeper look? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell for more history that still matters.